three-dimensional sculpture in the round, making it more of a statement of social, political. It's about war, it's about triumph, and it's about victory over circumstance, victory over controversy, victory over whatever your inconvenience is. There's victorious by the tree coming, sprouting out of this box. Box being a conscious, it could be a metaphor for your mind, for your state of being entrapped in this box. However, when you bust out of the box and flourish, your consciousness becomes free. It becomes more involved with a universal awareness, which can only be attained by contemplating God and contemplating our true purpose here on earth. And so therefore we're giving it an armor, so to speak, or a noble coloring, which is the silver and gold being, in America, the height of capitalism, the height of consumerism. These two elements are by far the most sought after elements that we have here on earth. This piece is called Thus Olympiad, giving it more of a Greek, triumphant, victorious ideal. Thus Olympiad. Upon this work of art, it's a two-dimensional work of art, but I call it more construction because there's or assemblage, or pieces being assembled onto it, found objects being incorporated into the piece. So making it mixed media with collage and wood on top of acrylic and marker and pen and ink. This piece is called the Negro Savant versus Savonarola. What I'm trying to represent here, a Negro Savant as Savonarola, being that, a lot of people, it's touching on racism, it's touching on classism, it's touching on religious virtue, with people challenging religious virtue of the prosperity preachers, people thinking that prosperity preachers are just about prosperity. However, people that say that do not realize totally that all throughout the Bible, all throughout Scripture, all throughout life, there has to be a consciousness or reconciliation with money being something that is necessary in order to continue life and survival on this earth. So the idea is having this thing as black people, Negro people, not being smart enough or intelligent enough to have this kind of ideology or have this kind of compassion or even this kind of wherewithal to be able to present a higher consciousness in society, which is a complete myth, was a complete untruth. However, a lot of people think that, even people that are quote unquote autistic, right? So using the word autistic and playing with that word and making it artistic, right, also is putting this, infusing that whole idea into this piece. So this idea is like, here it is, we have a messenger or a griot, if you will, a person speaking to the masses, challenging people, telling them that, there's a time that is going to come where you have to see things more for what they for what they are perceived to be. You have to figure out what's really being talked about, what's really being desired for a continuation of humanity. And the notion of this spoon being spoon-fed, the idea that we're fed things instead of finding out true knowledge for ourselves and having true understanding for ourselves, we just take what we're fed and we grow on these ideas. And do we grow healthily or do we grow with disease and not knowing that we have disease? So that's the split consciousness. The text here, split, meaning that dichotomy of ideals, that dichotomy of nature versus nurture, the dichotomy of philosophy, the dichotomy of intelligence, the dichotomy of pretty much anything you can feel that goes between right and what is not right. Coming into this piece is highly conceptual, and it's speaking on the levels of poetry and bringing tribute to a 6th century poetess by the name of Sappho, which a lot of people still have misconceptions about to this day. This piece is representing an ideal of one of her poems, which is considered her last poem. This piece is called Sappho's Last Poem, exactly, representing what she thought about her life as an older woman. Looking back on her life, did she do the world justice through her work, through her life, through her existence, and through her purpose of spirituality? And to this day, we still have misconceptions about Sappho. So in a certain sense, we can think that, or she can even surmise of herself that she failed, because we have these, we're so gutted and we're so and so emerged and covered up by this misconception about who she really is, or who she really was. So this idea is she's looking out at you in a way of saying, I see you, do you see me? Do you see my purpose? Do you see my significance? Am I equal to you? Even though in the earlier centuries, Socrates and Plato regarded her as the 10th muse. So in the earlier centuries where women were not really regarded as significant, these two great poets and philosophers presented her on the level of muse, which is the highest of significance and the highest of intelligence, which is kind of a message, right? So, which is titled Effigy of Da Vinci. And, thinking about the understanding, thinking about what effigy means, is kind of a distorted view of something that's real, kind of manneristic or whatever. A lot of times when we see a lot of Da Vinci's work, Leonardo's work, take into consideration, for instance, the Mona Lisa. We see the Mona Lisa in books, and from the visual reference that we have in the books, or even on posters, we think that we get this conception that the Mona Lisa is this huge piece of artwork. However, one that would go to Paris and would go to the Louvre and actually see the Mona Lisa would be highly disappointed, which is another misconception, because even though the visual construct of the piece is a lot smaller, which is only 17 by 11 inches, not only is it small, but you have to stand so far back from it in order to see it, and it's even behind glass, further obstructing the visual magnificence of the piece. So the idea is like, okay, you see the Mona Lisa in person, and it totally is less than what your perception of it is. Does it make it, and through your disappointment, does it make it any less of a masterpiece because your perception of the piece was completely jaded and completely wrong from the start? Does it really offset its magnificence or its masterful piece or masterful artistry? No, it doesn't. So this piece, representing work on paper in much the same dimensions of the Mona Lisa, this being close to 17 by 11 inches, itself being 21 by 13 inches, and then entrusted onto a surface that is much bigger than it is. So the actual surface that it's entrusted on is the actual, it relates to the actual perception that you would have of what these earlier masterful pieces would be. However, the reality of these pieces were so small because they had to carry them around from place to place. So a lot of masterful pieces are not that big. So looking at this art, this piece being the old ways of representing art, being on canvas and being enshrouded in some type of frame. This piece being a painted frame of a wood frame, much like the bulbous wood frames that they would have in earlier centuries. But then all of that just for this piece. This piece must be a significant and awesome piece for such a big format to present it to the public. So that's actually again illustrating the idea that it's challenging your perception, it's going completely against your perception, but in reality, in actuality, this piece is still strong, it's still significant, it's still masterful. So now it's basically saying art is against you. Right? Art is not for you, art is not with you, it's against you because your perception of art is already jaded. So you cut yourself off. Effigy of Da Vinci. So that's what Urban Histories and Icons is all about. It's about representing Houston. It's about all of this work that you see that's here is representing an idea of Houston, laying firm that Houston, placing Houston as a really good, excellent venue, well, excellent city for art. You have a lot of powerful artists here. You have a lot of passionate artists and a lot of talented artists with urban histories and icons.